Hi, this is Monterastelli, the editor of TappingQA.com. We all know how important it is to keep ourselves clean, and it's not just because it's socially acceptable and we don't want to be stinky when we're around other people, but when we're able to stay clean, we're also able to ensure that we stay healthier and safe because we're taking care of any viruses or bacteria or bugs that we've picked up from other people as we move through our day. Well, the same thing is true for the energy that we pick up and the emotions that we have. It's important that we spend time keeping ourselves clean, getting rid of the excess emotions that we have, as well as the energy and the emotions that we've picked up from the people around us, either by choice or because they've dumped them on us, intentionally or unintentionally. So what I have here are a few tips that I like to call energy hygiene. They're little things that you can do regularly to make sure you're not carrying around too much emotional baggage from yourself or other people. This audio and well over 100 more are available for download at tappingqa.com/podcasts, and I really hope you enjoy learning about energy hygiene. Today we're going to talk about energy hygiene. And energy hygiene is a phrase that I coined to help myself and my clients to understand some really easy tools that we can use to help to maintain our well-being and our emotional health as we move through the day. And the term itself comes from the two roots, from energy and from hygiene. Energy. All of the emotions that we feel have an energetic component to them. You know this from the experience of when you experience someone who's really, really angry or really, really frustrated or really, really tense. You can simply feel that emotion as well. I mean, someone can walk into the room. You can have your back turned to the door. They don't say a word, so you don't have the visual cues of how they're holding tension in their body. You can't hear the words that they're saying. You can't see the expression on their face. And you can still tell when someone really angry has walked into the room. That's because of the energy that is produced inside of their body from the emotion that they're feeling. Now, you also know the experience that a person can be really angry or really tense or really frustrated, come into your space, you can feel that, and when they walk away, that emotion still lingers inside of you. And that's where the idea of hygiene comes from. That basically what we want to do is we want to look at the energy that is out there in the world that's created by the emotions of the people around us. And we want to look at ways that we can clean that up so we're not carrying it with us throughout the day. Because if we do that, you can see how energy builds upon energy builds upon energy. And sometimes it's hard enough for us to deal with the emotions of our own day as we deal with obstacle and struggle, to then have it complicated by the fact that we're now carrying around the energy of the emotion of the people who have come in and out of our lives. And so what I want to do is I want to share 5 really simple things that you can do in a preventative nature, as well as things that you can do after the fact to help you to do that sense of cleaning to ensure that you are maintaining your emotional health and well-being by not having to carry around all of this energy from their emotion. The first thing that we can do is we can simply be aware of the fact that we are affected by the energy, by the emotions of those of us around us. And that happens to more or less degrees depending on our temperament and our sensitivity, but all of us can be affected by that. And so if we understand that that's the case, when we walk into circumstances where we know it's going to be highly emotionally charged, we can be on our guard. And by simply being on our guard, what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to make better choices when we walk into those circumstances. I mean, there are times when we become blindsided by the emotions of people around us. We can have someone walk into our home or walk into our office or get into our car who's having a really bad day, and we might not have anticipated that. But at the exact same time, there are also circumstances in which we know we're going to be walking into charged circumstances. We know that someone's having a really rough day. We know that every single time we visit a certain place, there's just going to be high tension because that's the reality of it. You know that when you go to the DMV, people are going to be at the end of their rope because going to the DMV can be a really frustrating experience. And so you know going in what you're going to be getting into. Now, I don't want to make this sound like that we want to become these emotional automatrons, and as we walk into a place that we're going to completely shut out any emotion we bump into. That's not the case at all. But what we simply want to do is we simply want to be aware of the input that we're going to be taking in so that when we walk into that space, we're prepared. Because if we're prepared, then we are able to also notice what's going on inside of us. I mean, I know I've been in circumstances where I've been around someone who's having a really hard time emotionally, and as I'm in the middle of that experience, I feel that emotion arising in me, and then it goes out of control inside of me. But if I knew before I went into the circumstance that there was a possibility that it was going to be highly emotionally charged, by being in a space where I knew that was coming, what it would allow me to do is it would allow me to pay attention to what's going on inside of me. By paying attention on what's going on inside of me, if I need to step out of a circumstance because I'm being dramatically affected by what's going on emotionally, then I'm able to do that. So simply being aware of the circumstances that we're going to be walking into is a really critical part of being able to take care of our emotional health as we deal with other people's emotion. The second thing that we can do is we can create some insulation to help protect ourselves from the stuff that we're going into. You know, wearing sunblock isn't saying that the sun is bad. I mean, we actually need the sun to be able to create certain vitamins and minerals inside of our body. But exposure to too much sun can be dangerous to us. So what we do is we simply apply a layer of sunscreen. It's really easy for us to do the exact same thing to take care of the energy that we are bumping into. And this technique I actually learned from a hypnotist who did a great deal of work with convicted pedophiles. That he was in a circumstance where he was encountering people that had some real darkness inside of them. And the work he was doing was really important to help them out on their path to healing as they continued to be incarcerated. But he knew that he needed to do something to take care of himself. Because as he put it, he said that they have darkness inside of them that you simply don't want touching your soul. And so the exercise is really, really simple. And instead of explaining it, what I'm going to have you do is just simply experience this. Obviously, if you're driving or doing something that requires your attention, you'll have to come back to this later. But what I want you to do is just close your eyes. And all I want you to do is I want you to imagine, starting at your center, is a small ball of white light growing right out of your core. And as each moment passes, I want you to feel that ball of light growing larger and larger. And as that ball of light grows larger and larger, feel it to the point where it gets where it's actually larger than you are. So it's a ball of white light that's completely protecting you. Now, as you imagine this ball of white light that's completely protecting you, all you need to do is imagine that this ball of white light is a shield of protection, a shield of light and love. For me, when I do something like this, it's really rooted in my sense of prayer. And as you do this, as you create this light of protection, simply imagine that this ball of light is only going to let through energy and emotion that's useful and helpful to you throughout your day. And at the exact same time, imagine that any of the energy that's not useful and helpful can't come through this ball of white light. One of my favorite iterations on this is just off to the side, imagine there's a giant lightning rod that's connected to the ground. And so just imagine energy that is not helpful or useful to you hitting the edge of this ball of white light, and see it bouncing over to the lightning rod, hitting the lightning rod, and going into the ground. Because that's what a lightning rod does, is it grounds this energy. And so all you need to do is do an exercise like this before you start your day. It's really helpful to do that. I do something like this before every single one of my client sessions, just because I don't know what I'm going to be bumping into and what my clients are going to be bringing to that conversation that day. If you're going into a circumstance like we talked about in the last point, of being aware of where you're walking into, what this does is it allows you one more tool preemptively before you walk into a circumstance to protect yourself. The third thing you can do is what I like to call cleaning up before you leave. And when we are someplace and we expend energy, it's really easy for us to feel like we're caught in all of the places we've left throughout the day. That part of the reason that we're so fatigued at the end of the day is we've had emotional experiences a lot of different places, which is good, which is all part of life, but it's almost as if we've been spread really thin across all of these places. And so one of the things I like to do before I leave any space that I've spent a significant amount of time in, or I've expelled any significant emotional energy, good or bad, but just expelled emotional energy, what I do before I leave the space as I'm approaching the door is I simply turn around, I look back at the space, and I imagine that all of the energy that I've expelled in this space is going to come sucking back to me. I almost see myself like a giant magnet. And with just a snap, it's as if everything that I have spent in this room comes zipping back to me, and I'm cleaning it all up, and I'm taking it with me. And what I found is that even if this isn't doing anything specifically with the energy that I've left behind, what it's helping me to do is it's helping me mentally to create a break from the place that I'm leaving. So as I move on to activity and event throughout the rest of my day, I'm in a circumstance where I'm able to keep myself focused and in the moment, so I'm not being stretched thin and I'm not lingering throughout the day. The fourth thing that we can do is, after we have completed any sort of emotional interaction, is we can cut the cord of that emotional interaction. That part of being human, particularly if we find ourselves in the more sensitive end of the spectrum when it comes to our temperament, is that we create really strong emotional connections to the people we're around. And this is a really good thing. This gives us richness of life. This gives us profound connection to other people where we can truly share and experience what's going on. But we also need to move on from that moment into things that continue throughout our day. And if we stay connected to those really strong emotional moments, it makes it difficult for us to be present to what's at hand. And so the simple way to do this is to imagine, after you've had a conversation, the connection that you have to the person that you just had the conversation with. And imagine that there's some sort of connection between you and them. I mean, the way I envision it is I almost envision from my center to their center, there's this just a cord that's connecting the two of us, that we really are profoundly connected as we've had that interaction. And what I do is I then sever that cord. And that's not to say that I'm severing that person from my life or I'm getting rid of them, but I'm simply letting that connection go. And there's a number of ways you can do it. Some people will do it by simply taking their hands and swiping in a downward direction and as if they're cutting the cord that way. Other people will imagine they have some sort of sword that does it. Still, other people think that that's a little bit violent. And what they imagine instead is kind of like the old switchboard, where you would take two cords and you would connect them and you would plug them in. That at the end of the conversation, what they do is they simply imagine themselves reaching up and just unplugging themselves from that conversation, knowing that in the future what they can do is they can come back and reconnect. And again, what this does is it allows us to be fully present to the moment, but when we're done, it allows us to move on and break from that, so we're not lingering in that place and expending energy and thought back to it as we continue to move throughout our day. The last thing that we can do is we can spend some time at the end of each day where we're very intentionally cleaning up whatever we're carrying around. And EFT and any of the other tapping protocols are really, really effective for doing something like this. I mean, simply all you need to do to add to your tapping routine is to think back throughout your day and just pay attention to any of the emotions that you feel like you're still carrying around from any of your interactions. You know, it's really easy if we were dealing with someone who's really angry, as they come to mind, to feel that anger arising inside of us. And just take 5 or 10 minutes and just step through the day, starting at the beginning of the day, and just working through all of the events that we've had. And by noticing each one of these places where we've been, pay attention to the emotion that arises and the emotion that we're still carrying with us. And by doing this, taking some time and tapping on that and releasing that energy and releasing that emotion that we're carrying. I mean, think of it kind of like brushing your teeth. You know, we don't brush our teeth, most of us, after we put something in our mouth. You know, it's not like I take a bite of food and then I brush my teeth. I take a bite of food and I brush my teeth. But instead what I do is after I eat a meal or at the end of the day, what I'm able to do is I go back and I clean my teeth and I clean it for everything that I'm carrying around. And by just taking a few short minutes to do this, I ensure that there's not a buildup over a long period of time. Well, the same thing's true for the energy and the emotion that we pick up from our experiences throughout the day. And for those of us who have more sensitive temperaments, we also have the emotion that we've picked up from the people we've been around because we feel so profoundly what they felt as well. And so what this gives us an opportunity to do is just to clean that up and to let it go. Again, it's this idea of taking the energy that we've pulled in and releasing it so we can move on. So doing energy hygiene is a really easy, simple thing. It doesn't take a great deal of time. And if we do little bits of it all of the time, what we're going to ensure is that we don't have this buildup of all of the emotion that we're feeling so profoundly throughout the day. Again, this isn't an indictment on feeling emotion, and it's not an indictment on feeling profoundly the emotions of others around us. But what it is doing is it's taking a really clear, honest look at the way that those emotions can affect us over the long term if we continue to house them. And so the 5 simple things that I recommend to my clients all the time, and I do all of these things myself, is 1, to be aware preemptively of the things that are coming. If you know the circumstances in which you're going to be around highly charged emotional people, it's going to give you the opportunity to be more aware of what's going on as you experience them. The second thing you can do at the beginning of your day, or whenever you're walking into a circumstance where you know there's going to be high charge, is to spend a little time to ensure that you're insulating yourself. The image I use is a ball of white light with a lightning rod. I know for myself as well, I often bring my guardian angel into that. But wherever you're comfortable as you look into that, to be able to do something to take care of yourself. The third thing you can do is before you leave a space, just to clean up. Pay attention to anything that you're leaving behind. Gather that back to yourself just with a simple mental visualization. And that way you'll ensure that you're not spreading yourself too thin throughout your day. The fourth thing you can do is to sever the connections after something that you've been a part of that's really emotional. Again, you're not severing your connection to that person forever. You're simply disconnecting emotionally. So again, you're not stuck lingering in that moment, making sure that you can be fully present to all of the moments you're now experiencing, knowing at any point you can go back to that space. And fifth and last is to spend some time at the end of each day to just pay attention to what's come up. See what emotion you're still housing. See what you're carrying around. And just take a few moments and give thanks for the fact that you can experience emotion in such a profound, beautiful way. And just let the emotion go from this day, knowing that after a good night's sleep and you start the next day, you're going to be bumping into more and more experiences where you'll get the chance to feel so deeply.